2 days before Thanksgiving, my mom texted me saying we were keeping it small this year, just immediate family. An hour later, my sister Madison posted a photo on Instagram showing 15 elaborate place settings with gold chargers, crystal glasses, and handwritten name cards for extended family, including cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone, except me. I realized I had been deliberately excluded from what appeared to be the largest family gathering in years. Instead of confronting them, I silently cooked a solo meal of grilled cheese and tomato soup, turned off my phone, and went to bed, completely unaware that tomorrow would shatter everything I believed about my family. I woke up the next morning in my Denver apartment, feeling surprisingly peaceful about my decision to avoid the family drama. The autumn sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe without the weight of family expectations crushing my chest. I had always been the outsider anyway, the one who moved away, the one who chose career over proximity. My name is Roderick, and I work as a financial advisor here in Denver. 3 years ago, I made the decision to leave Columbus, Ohio, where my family has lived for generations. The move was supposed to give me space to grow, to build something of my own without constantly being measured against family traditions and expectations. What I did not realize was how much that distance would cost me. The strain with my family had been building since my father's death 18 months ago. Dad was the glue that held us all together, the one who mediated between my mother, Patricia, and my sister, Madison, when their strong personalities clashed. Without him, the family dynamic shifted in ways I struggled to understand. Mom and Madison grew closer, making decisions together, sharing inside jokes, and apparently planning gatherings that did not include me. Patricia, my mother, is 58 years old and retired from teaching elementary school last year. She now works part-time at a local flower shop called Blooms and Petals, arranging bouquets for weddings and funerals. She has always been the type of person who needs to stay busy, to feel useful, and since Dad's death, that need has intensified. Madison, my 25-year-old sister, works as a social media coordinator for a nonprofit called Columbus Community Connections. She still lives in Columbus, just 20 minutes from our childhood home, and visits Mom several times a week. I used to think their closeness was natural, a byproduct of geography and shared grief. Madison was there for the funeral arrangements, the estate paperwork, the day-to-day emotional support that Mom needed. I flew in for the funeral and stayed a week, but then I had to return to my clients, my life, my responsibilities, 2,000 miles away. Maybe I convinced myself that my absence was understanding, that giving them space to heal was the right thing to do. But looking at that Instagram post with its carefully arranged table settings, its obvious exclusion of me, I realized that somewhere along the way, space had turned into separation, and separation had turned into something that felt intentional. I made myself coffee in my small kitchen and tried to focus on the positives. I had planned a quiet day of reading and maybe catching up on some work. I had bought ingredients for a simple Thanksgiving meal for one. Nothing elaborate, just some comfort food to mark the holiday. My phone sat on the counter, still powered off from the night before, and I felt no urgency to turn it back on. The thing about being excluded is that it forces you to examine your relationships with uncomfortable honesty. I thought about my cousin Emma, Uncle Frank's daughter, who was clearly at that dinner table based on the name cards I had seen. Emma and I had been close growing up, but we rarely talked anymore. There was my Aunt Susan, my father's sister, who had always been kind to me but seemed to defer to Mom's decisions about family matters. And Uncle Frank himself, Dad's brother and the family lawyer, who had handled the estate with efficiency but little warmth. As I sat in my living room, looking out at the Rocky Mountains in the distance, I wondered if I had misread the entire situation. Maybe the text about keeping it small was genuine, and the dinner was a last-minute change. Maybe I was being paranoid, seeing deliberate exclusion where there was simply poor communication. But then I remembered the name cards. Handwritten name cards do not appear overnight. The gold chargers, the crystal glasses, the elaborate centerpiece. All of it required planning and preparation. This was not a spontaneous gathering that grew beyond expectations. This was a calculated event that I was never meant to attend. My phone had been buzzing intermittently throughout the morning, the vibrations muffled by the kitchen towel I had placed over it. I ignored it, choosing instead to lose myself in a novel about family secrets and hidden inheritances, the kind of fiction that suddenly felt uncomfortably close to reality. Around noon, I made a sandwich and settled in for what I assumed would be a quiet afternoon. That was when I noticed my phone's notification light blinking rapidly, indicating multiple missed calls and messages. Against my better judgment, I picked it up and powered it on. 17 missed calls. The number made my stomach drop. 17 calls throughout the night from various family members, including numbers I did not immediately recognize. There were text messages from unknown contacts asking where I was, missed calls from my estranged Uncle Frank at 3 in the morning, and voice messages that I was too anxious to listen to. One text message from an unknown number stood out. "Roderick, this is your cousin Jake. Where are you? Everyone is asking questions and Mom told me to reach out. Call me when you get this." Jake was Uncle Frank's son, 2 years younger than me, and we had barely spoken since high school. The fact that he was reaching out, using my full name instead of the childhood nickname he usually called me, suggested something serious was happening. I scrolled through Madison's Instagram more carefully, expanding the photos and studying the details I had missed the night before. In one of her story posts, I caught a glimpse of what looked like legal documents spread across the dining room table. The papers were partially obscured by serving dishes, but I could make out official letterhead and what appeared to be multiple signatures. Then I saw it. In one brief video clip Madison had posted during the dinner, Uncle Frank was clearly visible, holding what looked like paperwork with my name on the header. The clip was only 3 seconds long, but I replayed it a dozen times, trying to read the document over his shoulder. My hands began to shake as the realization hit me. This was not just a family dinner I had been excluded from. This was some kind of official family business, some kind of meeting or proceeding that involved legal documents with my name on them. The carefully arranged place settings, the formal atmosphere, Uncle Frank's presence with paperwork. It all pointed to something much more serious than a holiday meal. I set the phone down and walked to my bathroom, splashing cold water on my face and staring at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked tired, confused, and suddenly very alone. Whatever had happened at that dinner table, whatever decision had been made or document had been signed, it involved me, and I had been deliberately kept out of it. The peaceful morning I had planned evaporated completely, replaced by a growing dread that my family had not just excluded me from Thanksgiving dinner, but from something that would fundamentally change my life. My hands were still shaking as I tried calling Madison, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Her social media, which had been active throughout the previous evening, had gone completely dark. No new posts, no story updates, nothing. The silence felt deliberate, calculated, like a digital door slamming in my face. I called my office and left a message taking a personal day, something I had never done on such short notice in my 5 years with the firm. My supervisor would not be happy, but I could not focus on client portfolios when my own family seemed to be conducting secret business involving my name and my absence. Within an hour, I was in my car driving east toward Columbus. 4 hours of interstate highway stretching ahead of me. The November landscape was stark and gray, leafless trees standing like skeletons against an overcast sky. I kept my phone connected to the car's audio system, hoping Madison or Mom would call back, but the silence continued. Halfway through the drive, my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Emma. The message was brief, but loaded with implication. "I cannot believe they did not tell you. This is not right." I immediately tried calling Emma, but like Madison, her phone went to voicemail. I sent a text back, asking what she meant, but received no response. The cryptic message only deepened my anxiety, and confirmed that something significant had indeed happened at that dinner. Something that everyone knew about, except me. I pulled into Columbus just after 3 in the afternoon, driving through familiar neighborhoods that looked smaller and shabbier than I remembered. The city had that end-of-November gloom, Christmas decorations appearing in store windows while dead leaves still clung to gutters and sidewalks. Instead of going directly to my childhood home, I parked across the street and observed the house from a distance. Uncle Frank's black sedan was still in the driveway, which seemed unusual since he typically kept regular office hours. Through the front window, I could see Mom and Frank sitting at the kitchen table, engaged in what appeared to be an intense discussion over a pile of documents. Frank was pointing at specific pages while Mom nodded, occasionally covering her face with her hands in what looked like distress. The scene confirmed my worst suspicions. This was not casual family business. This was something serious enough to keep a lawyer at my mother's house well into the afternoon following what was supposed to be a holiday dinner. Madison's car was not in the driveway, which meant she had already left for work at Columbus Community Connections. I decided to start there, hoping she might be more forthcoming in person than she had been through her silence. The nonprofit occupied a converted Victorian house near downtown, painted cheerful yellow with a sign advertising community outreach programs and volunteer opportunities. I had visited Madison there a few times over the years, usually when I was in town for holidays or family events. The receptionist, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and kind eyes, recognized me immediately. "Roderick, how nice to see you. Are you here to see Madison? Is she in today?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual despite the anxiety churning in my stomach. The receptionist's expression shifted slightly, becoming more cautious. "Actually, Madison called in sick this morning. She sounded terrible, poor thing. Must be coming down with something." Before I could respond, a younger woman emerged from one of the back offices. I recognized her as Sarah, one of Madison's co-workers, someone I had met briefly at a company picnic last summer. Sarah saw me, and her face immediately flushed, with what looked like embarrassment or guilt. "Oh, hi, Roderick," Sarah said nervously. "I thought you would be." "I mean, Madison said you were." "Said I was what?" I pressed, sensing that Sarah knew more than she was letting on. Sarah glanced around nervously, clearly uncomfortable. The lawyers were asking so many questions yesterday. I figured you would be busy with all of that." The receptionist looked confused, obviously not privy to whatever Sarah was referencing. I felt my pulse quicken at the mention of lawyers, plural, which suggested this was bigger than just Uncle Frank's involvement. "What lawyers?" I asked directly. "What questions?" Sarah realized she had said too much. Her face went white, and she took a step back toward her office. I should not have. Madison did not say I could. I need to get back to work. She disappeared into her office and closed the door, leaving me standing in the lobby with more questions than answers. The receptionist tried to make small talk about my job in Denver, but I excused myself and left, my mind racing with implications. I drove to our family's regular coffee shop, a place called The Grind that had been our weekend breakfast spot since I was in high school. The owner, Mrs. Patterson, had known our family for over 15 years and had always been friendly and chatty with us. Mrs. Patterson was behind the counter when I walked in, and her face lit up with recognition. "Roderick, how wonderful to see you. I was just thinking about your family yesterday." I ordered my usual coffee and tried to seem casual as I asked how she was doing. Mrs. Patterson was the type of person who loved to talk, and she immediately launched into stories about other longtime customers and neighborhood changes. "It was so nice seeing the whole family at the law office yesterday," she said while preparing my drink. "Family matters can be so complicated, but it looked like everyone was there to support each other." My coffee cup nearly slipped from my hands. "The law office. Oh, yes. I was dropping off some flowers for Frank's secretary's birthday when I saw all of you heading in. Well, I assumed you were there too, though I did not see you specifically." These estate matters can be so difficult, especially when there are complications. Mrs. Patterson continued talking, but her words became background noise as the reality of the situation crystallized. The family had met at Uncle Frank's law office, not just at Mom's house for dinner. This was official legal business, something requiring professional consultation and documentation. I thanked Mrs. Patterson and left the coffee shop, my mind reeling with the implications. Estate matters, complications, legal consultations, and my deliberate exclusion from all of it. I drove to Uncle Frank's office, a small brick building near the courthouse that housed his solo practice. Frank had been handling our family's legal needs for decades. Everything from wills to real estate transactions to business contracts. His secretary, Jessica, had gone to high school with me, just a year behind. I parked in the small lot behind the building and waited, unsure of what I hoped to accomplish but knowing I needed more information before confronting anyone directly. Around 5 o'clock, Jessica emerged from the back entrance, heading toward her car. Roderick. She seemed surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" Jessica had always been friendly during our school years, and she maintained that warmth now, though I could sense some underlying tension in her demeanor. "I was hoping to talk to Uncle Frank," I said. "Is he still in the office?" "He left about an hour ago," Jessica replied, then glanced around the parking lot as if checking whether we were being observed. "Roderick, I probably should not say anything, but this whole situation does not seem right to me." My heart started racing. "What situation?" Jessica looked genuinely conflicted, weighing professional loyalty against personal ethics. "The meetings, the paperwork, the secrecy. Your family has been coming in for weeks, and Frank specifically told me not to mention it if you called or stopped by." Weeks. The word hit me like a physical blow. This had been going on for weeks while I assumed everything was normal between us. "There was a second will discovered last month," Jessica said quietly, glancing toward Frank's office windows to make sure he had not returned. "It changes significant aspects of the inheritance distribution. Your mother thought it would be easier to handle the complications first, then tell you afterward." I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. A second will meant that everything I thought I knew about my father's estate, about the inheritance Madison and I were supposed to share, might be completely wrong. "What kind of complications?" I asked. Jessica shook her head. "I cannot say more. I have already said too much." "But Roderick, you have a right to know what affects you. The family has been meeting with Frank for weeks, trying to figure out how to handle this without involving you in the legal complications." She got into her car, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot as the November darkness closed in around me. My family had been lying to me for over a month, conducting secret meetings about a will that apparently changed everything. While I continued my normal life in Denver, oblivious to the fact that my inheritance, my family relationships, and my understanding of my father's final wishes were all built on deception. The betrayal felt deeper than simple exclusion from a holiday dinner. This was systematic deception, weeks of deliberate lies, and the involvement of professionals who were supposed to serve the entire family's interests, not just the interests of those present in the room. I sat in my car as the parking lot emptied, trying to process the magnitude of what I was learning. Somewhere in Uncle Frank's files was a document that would change my life, and my family had decided I was not worthy of the truth. I drove aimlessly around Columbus for an hour, trying to process the magnitude of my family's deception. The city looked different now. Not like the hometown I had grown up loving, but like a place where everyone knew secrets I was not allowed to share. Every familiar street corner reminded me of family memories that suddenly felt tainted by lies. Finally, I returned to Uncle Frank's office and waited in the parking lot until I saw his car return around 7 in the evening. Frank was a creature of habit, often returning to the office after dinner to catch up on paperwork in the quiet evening hours. When I knocked on his office door, Frank's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, guilt, resignation, all in the span of a few seconds. "Roderick," he said, stepping aside to let me in. "I was not expecting to see you." I imagine you were not, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, considering you told your secretary to hide any contact from me. Frank's shoulders sagged. He was my father's younger brother, 62 years old with graying hair and the kind of tired eyes that come from decades of handling other people's family conflicts. He had always been the family member who tried to smooth over disagreements, who found legal solutions to personal problems. Sit down, Frank said, gesturing toward the chairs across from his desk. I suppose we need to talk. I suppose we do, I agreed, starting with why my family has been meeting with you for weeks without my knowledge. Frank removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Your mother asked me to handle this delicately. There were complications she wanted to resolve before involving you. What complications? A second will was found in your father's safety deposit box last month, Frank admitted. It supersedes the will we probated after his death. The newer will contains provisions that significantly change the inheritance distribution. I felt my world tilting. What kind of provisions? Frank hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. The original will left the family home and most financial assets to be divided equally between you and Madison. The newer will has additional beneficiaries and conditional clauses that create legal complexities. What additional beneficiaries? People outside the immediate family, Frank said carefully. Your father apparently had financial obligations and relationships that we were not aware of when he died. You are being deliberately vague, I said, my frustration growing. I am a beneficiary of this will, Frank. I have a right to see the actual document. Frank opened a file drawer and retrieved a thick folder. Your mother made me promise to consult with the family before showing this to anyone. She was trying to protect you from information that might be emotionally devastating. More devastating than discovering my family has been lying to me for a month. Frank spread several documents across his desk. The will references property and financial accounts that we did not know existed. It names beneficiaries, who are not members of this family, and it contains information about your father that fundamentally changes our understanding of who he was. I leaned forward to examine the papers, but Frank's hand hovered protectively over them. Before you read this, you need to understand that your mother has been in crisis mode since we discovered these documents. She has barely been sleeping, barely been eating. Madison has been taking care of her. What kind of information? Frank removed his hand from the papers and let me see the will's first page. My father's signature was at the bottom, along with witness signatures and a notary seal. The date was 6 months before his death, making it legally supersede the will we had probated. As I read through the document, certain phrases jumped out at me. Additional beneficiaries residing in Cincinnati, Ohio. Property holdings in Hamilton County. Ongoing financial obligations to Diane Matthews and dependents. Who is Diane Matthews? I asked. Frank's expression grew even more uncomfortable. That is what we have been trying to determine. She appears to be someone your father supported financially for a significant period of time. Supported how? Monthly payments from a separate account we did not know existed. The payments go back over 20 years, Roderick. We are talking about substantial amounts of money. I continued reading and found references to Tyler Matthews and Cassandra Matthews as additional beneficiaries. And these other people. We believe they are Diane Matthews' children. Adults now. Based on the birth dates listed in the will, the implications hit me like a physical blow. My father had been supporting another woman and her children for over 20 years. Not occasional help, but ongoing, systematic support that required a separate will and secret accounts. Does this Diane Matthews know about the will? I asked. Frank nodded grimly. We contacted her last week to verify the claims. She has been expecting this contact since your father's death 18 months ago. She has documentation going back decades. What kind of documentation? Marriage certificates? Birth certificates? Financial records? Roderick, this woman has legal documents that we are still trying to understand fully. I felt nauseated. Marriage certificates? Your father apparently had a relationship with this woman that predates his marriage to your mother. The legal implications are complicated and potentially devastating to your mother's financial security. Frank gathered the papers back into the folder. Your family met yesterday to discuss whether to contest these claims or negotiate a settlement. They wanted to present you with options and solutions, not just problems. What did they decide? Your mother wants to fight this. She believes these claims are fraudulent or exaggerated. Madison is torn between supporting your mother and accepting that these documents appear to be legitimate. I stood up, pacing Frank's small office. And you? Honestly, I think fighting this will be expensive, emotionally destructive, and legally risky. The documentation appears authentic, and the financial records are thorough. But your mother is not ready to hear that. When were you planning to tell me? Frank looked ashamed. After Thanksgiving. Your mother wanted to have a plan in place first. A clear legal strategy that would protect the family's interests. Protect the family's interests, I repeated. I am part of this family, Frank. At least, I thought I was. You are, Frank said quickly. That is exactly why your mother wanted to shield you from this until we could offer solutions along with the problems. I headed toward the door, then turned back. There is one thing I do not understand. If Dad was supporting this woman and her children for 20 years, why did not this come up when he died? Why wait until now? Frank's expression grew even more troubled. According to Diane Matthews, she was respecting your father's wishes to let your immediate family grieve without additional complications. But when she learned about the original will and saw how the estate was being distributed, she felt obligated to come forward with the second will. She has been waiting 18 months. She says she was hoping the family would discover the second will independently. When that did not happen, she contacted us directly last month. I left Frank's office with my head spinning. My father had maintained a secret life for decades, supporting another family while I grew up believing we were his only children. The inheritance I thought was secure was now subject to claims from strangers, and my family had decided to handle this crisis without me, treating me like a child who needed protection from adult realities. But there was something else bothering me, something Frank had not explained. If this Diane Matthews had legitimate claims and documentation, if she had been patient and respectful for 18 months, why was my family so determined to fight her? Why not negotiate a fair settlement? I drove to my childhood home, parked in the driveway, and prepared to confront my mother directly. Whatever complicated emotions and family loyalties had driven this deception, I was done being treated like an outsider in my own family's legal affairs. The porch light was on, and I could see Mom silhouetted in the living room window. As I walked toward the front door, I realized that this conversation would either bring my family together through honesty or tear us apart through accusations and resentment. Either way, the lies were about to end. I found my mother sitting at the kitchen table, still wearing the same clothes from the day before, surrounded by crumpled tissues and legal documents. She looked like she had not slept in days, her usually neat hair disheveled, and her eyes red from crying. "Roderick," she whispered when she saw me. "How did you—" "I know about the will, Mom," I said, sitting across from her. "I know about Diane Matthews and the children in Cincinnati. What I do not know is why you thought lying to me for a month was the right way to handle this." Mom began crying harder, pressing her hands against her face. "I was trying to protect you. I was trying to protect all of us." "Protect us from what?" She looked up at me with devastated eyes. "From the truth about your father. From learning that our entire marriage, our entire family, might have been built on lies." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Tell me everything." For the next 2 hours, my mother revealed a story that shattered every assumption I had ever made about my family. The Diane Matthews situation was not just about financial support or hidden assets. It was about the possibility that my father had been living a double life for decades. According to the documents Diane had provided, She and my father had been married in Cincinnati in 1993, 2 years before he married my mother. Diane had birth certificates for Tyler and Cassandra Matthews, born in 1996 and 1998, listing my father as their biological parent. Frank thinks the first marriage might have been invalid due to technical issues, Mom said, but Diane has documentation suggesting otherwise. What kind of technical issues? Your father told me he had been engaged before we met, but never married. If he lied about that, if he was legally married to someone else when we had our ceremony, the implications hung in the air between us. If my father had committed bigamy, if his marriage to my mother was not legally valid, then everything about our family's legal status became questionable. The financial support was not just occasional help, Mom continued. It was systematic, monthly payments that came from accounts I did not know existed. He was supporting 2 households, 2 families, for over 20 years. How did you find out? I suspected something during his final illness. Phone calls at odd hours, unexplained absences, financial discrepancies I could not account for. But I was so focused on his medical care that I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Mom showed me bank statements Frank had discovered, documenting monthly transfers to accounts in Diane's name. The amounts were substantial, often $1,500 to $2,000 per month. Money that would have significantly improved our family's financial situation over the years. When Frank contacted Diane last month, she was not surprised to hear from us. She had been expecting this call since your father died. She knew about our family, Roderick. She knew our names, our address, details about our lives that she could only have learned from him. What does she want? That is what is so confusing, Mom admitted. According to Frank, she is not seeking revenge or trying to destroy our family. She wants legal recognition of her relationship with your father and fair distribution of his assets among all his children. I tried to process this information objectively. That sounds reasonable. Does it? Mom's voice became sharp. She wants half of everything, including this house. She wants Tyler and Cassandra to inherit equally with you and Madison. She wants to legitimize a relationship that was built on deception and betrayal. But if Dad was legally married to her first, we do not know that for certain. Mom interrupted. Frank is still researching the legal status of their relationship. There might be grounds to challenge her claims. What did Madison say yesterday? Mom's expression softened slightly. Madison is struggling with this as much as I am. She wants to support me, but she also thinks we should consider Diane's proposal. Madison has been researching family law online and believes that fighting this could be expensive and emotionally devastating. What exactly is Diane's proposal? Mom retrieved a letter from the stack of papers on the table. She wants to meet with our family in person. She wants to introduce Tyler and Cassandra and discuss fair division of assets. She says she is not interested in destroying our family, but she cannot let her children be denied their inheritance. I read through Diane's letter, written in neat handwriting on simple stationery. The tone was respectful but firm, acknowledging the pain this situation must be causing our family while maintaining that her children deserved recognition and fair treatment. She sounds reasonable, I said. She sounds like someone who has been planning this for 18 months. Mom replied bitterly. Someone who waited until we had grieved and settled the estate before coming forward with claims that could destroy everything we thought we knew about our lives. Or someone who was respecting our grief while gathering the courage to seek justice for her own children. Mom stared at me. You sound like you are taking her side. I am not taking anyone's side, I said carefully. But I am trying to understand why you thought I should be excluded from these decisions. This affects my inheritance, my understanding of Dad, my relationship with potential siblings I never knew existed, because I was afraid of exactly this reaction, Mom said. I was afraid you would be sympathetic to her claims and pressure us to give up everything we have worked for. Everything Dad worked for, you mean? While apparently working for another family at the same time, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Mr. Roderick, this is Tyler Matthews. I got your number from my mother. We are driving to Columbus tomorrow for Thanksgiving. We would like to meet you if possible. No pressure, no demands, just a chance to talk. I showed the message to my mother. Her face went white. They are coming here. Apparently. Mom began crying again. I cannot face them. I cannot sit in the same room with the woman who shared my husband and children who might be your half-siblings. It will destroy me. Mom, I said gently. Hiding from this will not make it go away. If Dad was legally married to Diane first, if Tyler and Cassandra are his children, then we need to find a way to deal with that reality. Your father is dead, Mom said angrily. He cannot defend himself or explain his choices. We only have this woman's word about what happened 28 years ago, and legal documents, and financial records, and children who share Dad's DNA. Mom looked defeated. Frank thinks we should fight this in court. He believes we can challenge the validity of their marriage and the legitimacy of the will. What do you think? I think I am 58 years old and facing the possibility that my entire adult life was a lie. I think I am terrified of losing my home, my financial security, and my understanding of the man I thought I knew better than anyone. We sat in silence for several minutes, both of us trying to process the enormity of the situation. Finally, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Diane Matthews. Answer it, Mom whispered. I accepted the call and put it on speaker. Hello. Roderick. The voice was warm but nervous. This is Diane Matthews. I hope you do not mind Tyler reaching out to you. We have been hoping to speak with you for so long. Hi, Diane, I said, unsure of the appropriate tone for such a conversation. I want you to know that we are not trying to hurt your family or take anything that rightfully belongs to you and Madison. Your father loved you both deeply, and he would be heartbroken to know that his choices have created this conflict. Then why wait 18 months to come forward? Because your father made me promise to let you grieve without additional complications. But when I learned that the estate had been settled without considering the second will, I realized that staying silent was not protecting your family. It was allowing injustice to continue. In the background, I could hear younger voices, presumably Tyler and Cassandra, my potential half-siblings, people who shared my blood and my father's legacy, but had been strangers to me my entire life. What do you want from us? Mom asked, her voice barely audible. I want truth, Diane replied simply. I want legal recognition of my relationship with your husband and fair inheritance for all 4 of his children. Most importantly, I want Tyler and Cassandra to know they're half-siblings and be part of the family their father described to them for years. He talked about us constantly, Diane said. He was proud of your academic achievements, Roderick, and Madison's social work. He showed us pictures, shared stories about your accomplishments. You were never secrets from us. We were the secrets from you. I looked at my mother, who was crying silently. Diane, we need time to process this. But I want you to know that Tyler and Cassandra are good people who have been looking forward to meeting you for months. They do not want conflict. They want family. After ending the call, Mom and I sat in the quiet kitchen, both of us emotionally drained. The situation was more complicated than simple financial disputes or inheritance disagreements. This was about identity, family structure, and the devastating discovery that the people we love are capable of profound deception. What are we going to do? Mom asked. I thought about Tyler's text message, about Diane's reasonable tone, about the possibility that I had half-siblings who wanted relationship rather than revenge. I thought about Frank's legal concerns and Madison's conflicted loyalties. Most of all, I thought about my father, who had apparently maintained this elaborate deception for decades, supporting 2 families while keeping them separated from each other. Whatever his motivations, his death had created a crisis that required courage and honesty to resolve. We are going to meet them, I said. Tomorrow, on Thanksgiving, we are going to sit down with Diane and Tyler and Cassandra and find out who our family really is. My mother looked terrified, but she nodded. And then we figure out how to be a family that includes everyone Dad loved, instead of a family that continues his lies. I called Tyler's number while sitting in my car outside my childhood home, trying to gather courage for what felt like the most important conversation of my life. Roderick. Tyler answered on the first ring, his voice eager and nervous. Yeah, it is me. My mother and I would like to meet you and your family tomorrow. Thanksgiving Day. Really, the relief in his voice was unmistakable. We were hoping, but we did not want to impose on your holiday. You are not imposing. You are family. Apparently. We just need to figure out what that means. I could hear Tyler speaking to someone in the background, presumably his mother and sister. Mom wants to know if there is anything we can bring, any way we can help with the meal. The question was so normal, so traditionally American family-oriented, that it almost made me laugh despite the circumstances. Here we were, navigating the fallout from decades of deception, and Tyler was worried about contributing to Thanksgiving dinner. Just bring yourselves, I said, and maybe some patience. This is going to be difficult for everyone. Roderick, Tyler said, his voice becoming more serious. I want you to know that we have been dreading this day as much as hoping for it. None of us wanted to hurt your family or cause problems, but we could not pretend forever that we did not exist. I understand. Can I ask you something? Of course. Did you know about us while Dad was alive? Tyler was quiet for a moment. Yes. We knew about you and Madison. Dad talked about you constantly. He showed us pictures, told us stories about your achievements and your personalities. But he always said that the situation was complicated and that someday, when the time was right, we would meet. The time was right when he died. That is what we thought too. But when months passed and there was no contact, Mom started to worry that he had never told your family about us. That is when she decided to reach out through the will. I gave Tyler the address and suggested they arrive around noon. One more thing, I said. What do you do? What are your lives like? I am a senior at University of Cincinnati studying engineering. Cassandra is a registered nurse at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. We are normal people. Roderick. We are not trying to scam anyone or take anything that is not rightfully ours. After ending the call, I returned to the house and found Mom sitting exactly where I had left her, staring at the legal documents spread across the kitchen table. They are coming tomorrow at noon, I said. Mom nodded without looking up. I called Madison. She is coming over tonight so we can prepare together. What kind of preparation? I do not know, Mom admitted. How do you prepare to meet your husband's other family? How do you prepare to discover that your life might have been a lie? Madison arrived around 8 o'clock, carrying Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. My sister looked exhausted, her usually perfect makeup smudged and her professional clothes wrinkled. She hugged me tightly when she saw me. I am so sorry we did not tell you, she said. I wanted to call you dozens of times, but Mom kept saying we needed to figure things out first. It is okay, I said, though it was not entirely okay. We are dealing with it now. The three of us sat around the kitchen table, eating Chinese food and drinking wine while reviewing the documents Frank had provided. Madison had printed additional research about bigamy laws in Ohio, inheritance rights for children born outside of legal marriage, and legal precedents for similar cases. The law is pretty clear, Madison said, pointing to highlighted passages in her research. If Dad's first marriage was legal and never properly dissolved, then his marriage to Mom was invalid. That gives Diane legal standing as his widow, and Tyler and Cassandra equal rights with us regarding inheritance. But Frank thinks there might be grounds to challenge the first marriage, Mom said. Based on what? Madison asked. Technical paperwork issues from 28 years ago? Even if we could prove some minor irregularity, is that the right thing to do? Mom looked hurt. You sound like you want to give everything to these strangers. They are not strangers. Madison said gently. If the DNA tests Frank is recommending prove what we already suspect, Tyler and Cassandra are our half-siblings. They are Dad's children just as much as we are. But we lived with him. Mom protested. We were the family he came home to every night. We were the ones he supported, and loved, and raised. And apparently they were the family he supported financially and visited regularly, I added. Mom, think about all those business trips Dad took, all those weekend conferences and professional obligations. How many of those were actually visits to Cincinnati? Mom poured herself more wine. I cannot think about that right now. It makes me feel like our entire marriage was a performance. Madison reached across the table and took Mom's hand. Maybe it was not a performance. Maybe Dad genuinely loved both families, but made terrible choices about how to handle the situation. Or maybe he was a selfish man who wanted two families and did not care about the consequences. Mom replied bitterly. We spent the rest of the evening going through photo albums, looking at family pictures, with new eyes. Dad's frequent absences, which we had attributed to work obligations, the financial pressures that seemed inexplicable given his income, the phone calls he would take in private, stepping outside or going to his study. Look at this, Madison said, pointing to a Christmas photo from 10 years ago. Dad is holding his phone and checking the time. I remember thinking it was rude, but what if he was worried about missing a call from Cincinnati? And here, I said, indicating a family vacation picture. Dad insisted we could not afford a longer trip, but according to these bank statements, he was sending $2,000 a month to Diane. We could have afforded anything. Mom closed the photo album. I cannot do this anymore tonight. If we keep analyzing every memory, I will lose my mind before tomorrow. Mom, I said, what do you want from tomorrow's meeting? What would make you feel like this was handled fairly? Mom thought for a long time before answering. I want to understand why your father did this. I want to know if Tyler and Cassandra are truly his children, or if this woman is taking advantage of a dead man who cannot defend himself. And I want to keep my home. What if the DNA tests prove they are his children? Then I want them to understand that we were victims of his deception too, and that any settlement needs to consider that I gave 30 years of my life to a marriage that might not have been legal. Madison and I cleaned up the kitchen while Mom went upstairs to bed. We could hear her crying through the bedroom door, but we decided to give her space to process the emotions privately. Are you nervous about meeting them? Madison asked while loading the dishwasher. Terrified, I admitted. What if we like them? What if they are genuinely good people who were also hurt by Dad's choices? Then we figure out how to be a family together, instead of fighting each other over Dad's mistakes. And what if Mom cannot handle that? Madison paused in her cleaning. Then we help her get the counseling and support she needs, but we do not let her pain prevent us from doing the right thing, which is treating Tyler and Cassandra fairly, regardless of how Dad treated any of us. I went to bed in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by high school trophies and college pennants, symbols of a life that suddenly felt completely different than it had just 24 hours earlier. Tomorrow I would meet siblings I had never known existed, learn more about a father who was apparently capable of extraordinary deception, and possibly reshape my understanding of family, loyalty, and inheritance. But most importantly, tomorrow I would stop being a passive victim of my family's secrets and start being an active participant in creating truth and justice from the wreckage of lies. Thanksgiving morning arrived gray and cold, with the kind of November wind that cuts through your coat and makes you want to stay inside. I woke up early and found Mom already in the kitchen, cooking with an intensity that seemed driven by nervous energy rather than holiday enthusiasm. I thought we should have a proper Thanksgiving meal, she said, without looking up from the turkey she was basting. Regardless of everything else, it is still a holiday. Madison arrived around 10 o'clock, carrying flowers and a sweet potato casserole. She had obviously put effort into looking presentable, wearing a blue dress and makeup that could not quite hide the stress and sleeplessness in her eyes. Any word from them? Madison asked. Tyler texted that they are an hour away. I replied, checking my phone. Mom, how are you feeling? Like I am about to host Thanksgiving dinner for my husband's other family. Mom said. How do you think I am feeling? At 11:45, a dark blue Honda Civic pulled into our driveway. Through the living room window, I watched 3 people get out of the car, a woman who appeared to be in her early 50s and 2 younger adults who moved with the kind of nervous energy that comes from anticipating a life-changing conversation. Tyler was tall and lean with dark hair and glasses, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt that suggested he had dressed carefully for this meeting. Cassandra was shorter with auburn hair and a nurse's practical demeanor, carrying a covered dish and what appeared to be a bottle of wine. Diane looked like someone who had been beautiful in her youth and remained attractive in middle age, despite the stress lines around her eyes and the cautious way she approached our front door. She was dressed simply but nicely, clearly having put thought into making a good impression. I opened the door before they could knock. "You must be Roderick," Diane said, her voice warm but shaky. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." "Thank you for coming," I replied, stepping aside to let them in. Tyler extended his hand for a firm handshake. "I cannot believe we are finally meeting. Dad talked about you so much." Cassandra smiled nervously and offered the covered dish. "I brought green bean casserole. I hope that is okay." The normalcy of the gesture, the traditional Thanksgiving contribution, struck me as both touching and surreal. Here were strangers who might be family, arriving with casserole as if this were any other holiday gathering. Madison appeared in the doorway, and I could see her taking in Tyler's features, noting the resemblances that were immediately apparent. Tyler had Dad's chin, and the same way of pushing his glasses up his nose when nervous. Cassandra had Dad's eyes, that particular shade of green that Madison and I had inherited as well. "You look like him," Madison said quietly. "So do you," Tyler replied. "Both of you." Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron and trying to compose herself for introductions. The moment she saw Diane, her face crumpled slightly, but she managed to maintain her dignity. "Patricia," Diane said gently, "I know this is impossibly difficult. Thank you for opening your home to us. I did not do it for you," Mom replied, then immediately looked ashamed of her bluntness. "I am sorry. This is hard for me." "I understand," Diane said. "It is hard for all of us." We moved into the living room, where an awkward silence settled over the group. Tyler and Cassandra sat close together on the couch, while Diane chose a chair that allowed her to see everyone. Madison and I flanked Mom, who perched on the edge of her favorite chair as if ready to flee. "Maybe we should start with questions," I suggested. "Things we need to know to understand the situation." Tyler nodded. "We have questions too. Dad told us about your family, but there was always so much he could not explain." "When did you find out about us?" Madison asked. "When we were kids?" Cassandra replied. "Dad would visit us every other weekend and sometimes during the week. He told us he had other children in Columbus who he loved very much, but that the situation was complicated." "How was it complicated?" Mom asked, her voice tight with emotion. Diane looked uncomfortable but answered honestly. "Your husband told me that he had made mistakes early in life that created legal and emotional obligations he could not easily resolve. He said he was working toward a solution that would allow all his children to know each other, but that it would take time." "What kind of mistakes?" I pressed. "He said he had married you without properly resolving our relationship," Diane said to Mom. "He acknowledged that our marriage was legally valid and that he should have divorced me before starting a new family, but that too much time had passed and too many lives would be damaged by the truth." Mom started crying. "So he just decided to live a double life instead." "I think he convinced himself it was temporary," Diane said softly. "That he would find a way to make everything legal and honest eventually." 28 years is not temporary," Madison said. "No, it is not," Diane agreed. "And we were victims of his choices, too. Tyler and Cassandra grew up without their father in their daily lives. I spent decades as essentially a single mother, even though I was married." Tyler leaned forward. We do not want to hurt your family or take away what you built together. But we also cannot pretend we do not exist or that we do not have rights as his children. What exactly do you want? Mom asked. Cassandra pulled out a folder of documents. We have been working with a lawyer in Cincinnati to develop a proposal that treats everyone fairly. She spread papers across the coffee table, including financial assessments, property evaluations, and inheritance calculations. We propose splitting Dad's assets equally among all 4 children, Cassandra explained. Tyler and I understand that you built a life in this house, Mrs. Patricia. So we are not asking you to sell it, but other financial assets, investments, and the life insurance policy should be divided fairly. What life insurance policy? Mom asked. Diane looked surprised. You do not know about the life insurance. We settled the estate 18 months ago, I said. There was no life insurance policy. Diane reached into her purse and pulled out a document. There is a $500,000 term life policy that your husband took out 3 years ago. I found it in his safety deposit box in Cincinnati, along with the second will. The room went silent. A $500,000 policy that our family had never known existed, hidden in a safety deposit box in another city. The beneficiary is listed as Patricia Matthews for the benefit of all children, Diane continued. He wanted your family to have financial security, but he also wanted to ensure Tyler and Cassandra were not forgotten. Mom was staring at the insurance documents as if they might disappear. $500,000. Money that was always intended for your family, Tyler said. We do not want any of it. We just want acknowledgement and fair treatment regarding the other assets. Madison looked at me, then at Mom. This changes everything. How? Mom asked. The life insurance covers all of our immediate financial concerns, Madison explained. The house payments, your retirement security, emergency funds. If Tyler and Cassandra are willing to forego their rights to that money, then splitting the other assets becomes much more manageable. Uncle Frank chose that moment to arrive, letting himself in through the front door as he had done for decades during family gatherings. He stopped short when he saw the Cincinnati family arranged around our living room. Frank, Mom said, you need to see this. Frank examined the life insurance policy while the rest of us watched his expression change from confusion to amazement to what looked like professional embarrassment. How did we miss this? Frank muttered. Because it was in a safety deposit box in Cincinnati that none of us knew existed, I replied. Along with the second will and probably other documents we have not seen yet. Frank sat down heavily in Dad's old chair. This policy would have covered all of your mother's financial concerns. If I had known about it 18 months ago, the estate settlement would have been completely different. You could not have known what you were not told, Diane said diplomatically. Your husband was very careful about keeping the two families separated. So what now? Madison asked. Tyler and Cassandra exchanged glances with their mother. Then Tyler spoke for the family. We would like to propose a trial period. 6 months of getting to know each other as siblings, sharing holidays, staying in touch, building the relationships our father hoped we would eventually have. And, legally, Frank asked. We sign agreements acknowledging each other's inheritance rights and dividing assets as we have outlined. Cassandra replied. But more importantly, we try to become the family our father wanted us to be, instead of continuing the deception that hurt everyone. I looked around the room at faces that suddenly felt like family in a way they had not an hour earlier. Tyler and Cassandra were not greedy strangers trying to steal our inheritance. They were young adults who had grown up with the same questions and confusion we were experiencing now. People who wanted relationship more than money. I have one condition, Mom said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I want DNA tests, she said. Not because I doubt you, but because I need scientific proof before I can emotionally accept that my husband had other children. I need to know for certain. Of course, Diane said immediately. We expected that, and we welcome it. Frank nodded approvingly. I can arrange for testing through a certified laboratory. Results should be available within a week. And I have a condition too, I said. Complete honesty from everyone moving forward. No more secrets. No more protection from difficult truths. If we are going to be family, we have to be honest family. Tyler smiled, the first genuinely relaxed expression I had seen from him since they arrived. Deal. Madison stood up and walked to the kitchen. Well then, we should eat dinner together. Our first official meal as a complete family. As we gathered around the dining room table, adding extra chairs and place settings for our unexpected family members, I realized that this was what justice looked like. Not legal battles or financial calculations, but the courage to face truth together and build something honest from the wreckage of lies. Dad's deception had created this crisis, but it was also about to give us something he had apparently always wanted, but been too cowardly to create himself. One unified family that included everyone he had loved. 3 months after that complicated Thanksgiving, I found myself sitting in Tyler's apartment near the University of Cincinnati, helping my half-brother prepare for his final engineering exams, while discussing plans for our newly combined family's spring vacation. The DNA tests had confirmed what we all suspected. Tyler and Cassandra were indeed my father's children, sharing the same genetic markers that Madison and I carried. But more importantly, the 3 months since Thanksgiving had confirmed something more valuable than genetic connections. We genuinely liked each other. Tyler and I discovered we had remarkably similar personalities, both analytical and somewhat introverted, both interested in financial planning and problem solving. We started a weekly phone tradition where we would discuss everything from career goals to family dynamics to our shared confusion about our father's choices. Cassandra brought a warmth and practical wisdom to our family that had been missing for years. Her medical background helped her support Mom through the anxiety and depression that followed the revelations, and her natural empathy made it easier for all of us to process the complicated emotions surrounding Dad's double life. The legal resolutions had been finalized under Uncle Frank's guidance, with everyone signing agreements that felt fair rather than punitive. Mom kept the family home and received the full life insurance benefit, while the other assets were divided equally among all 4 children. Tyler and Cassandra legally changed their last name to match ours, symbolically completing the family unity that Dad had never been brave enough to create. But the most profound changes had been personal rather than financial. Mom and Diane had developed an unlikely friendship, bonding over their shared experience of loving the same complicated man. They started meeting weekly for coffee, comparing stories about Dad's habits and quirks, filling in details about his personality that neither had fully understood while he was alive. Madison and Cassandra had become particularly close, supporting each other through career challenges and relationship decisions with the kind of sister bond that felt natural despite their years of separation. Madison was planning her wedding for next summer and had asked Cassandra to be her maid of honor. Most surprisingly, Mom had begun therapy and emerged stronger and more self-aware than I had seen her in years. She sold her part-time job at the flower shop and started volunteering with a support group for women dealing with marital deception and family secrets. She often said that helping other families navigate similar crises gave her a sense of purpose that purely personal healing could not provide. Tyler had transferred to a college near Denver and was sharing my apartment while finishing his engineering degree. Having him as a roommate had been an adjustment, but it was also the closest thing to a brother relationship I had ever experienced. We studied together, cooked together, and had long conversations about our father that helped both of us understand the man who had shaped our lives through both presence and absence. Uncle Frank had restructured his law practice to focus on family mediation rather than family litigation, publicly acknowledging that his approach to our situation had been flawed. He began giving seminars about the importance of transparency in family legal matters and had become an advocate for honesty in inheritance planning. The deeper lesson I had learned was that family loyalty should never require enabling deception. True protection comes from facing difficult truths together, not from hiding behind comfortable lies. Justice is not about punishment, but about creating systems where everyone can thrive honestly. I realized that Dad's greatest failure was not the bigamy itself, but the decades of cowardice that followed his initial mistake. He could have resolved the legal and emotional complications at any point during our childhood, but he chose the false piece of deception over the difficult work of truth-telling. My relationship with Madison had deepened because we now shared the experience of choosing difficult truth over easy lies. We had learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to do what is right despite being afraid. The life lesson that emerged from this crisis was profound. Honesty, no matter how delayed or painful, creates possibilities for healing that secrets never can. The willingness to fight for truth, rather than comfortable lies, had transformed potential enemies into genuine family members. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give those we love is the courage to face difficult truths together, rather than the false comfort of beautiful lies. Our combined family was planning our second Thanksgiving together, this time including Tyler's girlfriend and Cassandra's fiancé. I was dating someone new, a fellow financial advisor named Jennifer, and felt confident about introducing her to my complex but honest family structure. I had started writing a book about navigating family financial deception, hoping to help other families avoid the pain we had experienced, while also sharing the healing we had discovered. The working title was After the Lies: Building Family from Truth, and it was based on interviews with dozens of families who had survived similar deceptions. Most importantly, I had learned to live with intentional honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. I committed to never again allowing family loyalty to override critical thinking, and to always remember that trust must be built on truth, rather than comfortable assumptions. The man who had stood in his childhood kitchen 3 months ago, reading a devastating text message from his mother, felt like a different person than the man I had become. That man had been a passive victim of his family's secrets. I had become an active participant in creating justice and healing from the wreckage of lies. Dad's deception had created years of pain for 2 families, but it ultimately taught all of us that truth-telling, no matter how delayed, creates possibilities for genuine connection that secrets never can. The courage to seek honesty rather than comfortable deception had given us the family Dad had apparently always wanted but been too afraid to create. As I helped Tyler prepare for his final exams, I thought about the question that had driven me through this entire experience. What does justice look like when the person who created the problem is no longer alive to face the consequences? The answer, I had learned, is that justice looks like courage. The courage to face truth together rather than hide behind lies. The courage to choose difficult honesty over comfortable deception. And the courage to build something beautiful from the broken pieces of other people's mistakes. Our story proves that families are not just about shared genetics or shared history. They are about the conscious choice to love and support each other through truth rather than deception, through justice rather than comfortable lies. Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything you thought you knew about your relationships? How did you handle the choice between confronting difficult truths or maintaining comfortable lies? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for taking this journey with me through one of the most challenging and ultimately rewarding experiences of my life. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about finding strength through honesty and building authentic relationships from broken foundations. Share this story with anyone who might benefit from knowing that truth, no matter how painful, always creates more possibilities for healing than the most beautiful lies ever could. Until next time, remember that the courage to seek truth is always worth more than the comfort of convenient deception.